Hey, welcome back to That's What He Said. I'm your host, Natalie, and this is a podcast about dating. Before you watch, make sure you subscribe, follow, like, comment, rate, review, and share the show. Let's find out what he said.
I'm going to get criticized at some point.
Yeah, that's actually something that I really dislike is people who can't take criticism, like especially in the middle of conflict. Like I really think that's a really bad trait.
And you see it a lot in relationships. A lot of it is when you talk about criticizing, like approach.
That's true.
There are people that aren't good with,
Like
they're
wording.
not very constructive. They're more abrasive,
That's true, yeah.
which I guess that's life, but still. Think before you speak.
It's a balancing act too, though, because you can't expect people to like always say things perfectly without sounding like, you know,
Of course.
be too sensitive, basically.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yay. Welcome back, everybody. This is Jared. How do I say your last name?
Cosart.
Cosart.
Sounds like a Z.
What kind of last name is that? What's your ethnicity?
My dad doesn't really know.
Okay.
Yeah, he was adopted off of the street at birth. Or not at birth, sorry. He was like 5 or 6. But he lived with his sister on the streets during his childhood. And then CPS came and got him. And he was adopted by a farm family in Illinois.
Oh my gosh.
So we've done 23andMe and all kinds of stuff.
You have done it?
Yeah, I honestly don't know like much about it. He hasn't really been open about it. It's actually just happened a couple months ago. We found out. So I mean, I didn't find out. Him and my mom
Wait, you
did.
found out that he was adopted?
No. He found out about his family, like, or his what he is. He doesn't. He doesn't know his parents. He doesn't know. He has one sister that he knows of, and then she died 10 years ago, I think. There's about a 20-year age difference between them.
So has he tried to connect with any of those people?
He doesn't know.
Like on 23andMe or anything?
So we haven't. I don't think there's any information on it as far as that.
Really?
I don't remember. I honestly don't know what his background is.
This is unrelated to the podcast,
Yeah,
and I'm so curious.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I don't know. I have to ask him. My mom's Irish. Just white as can be.
But Cosart, is that his adopted name?
Yes, his adopted name. So we don't know his, I don't know his last name or anything.
Okay. So Cosart would be, that sounds European.
Yeah.
Of some sort.
I would guess. I don't know.
I'll Google it after this.
Yeah. We get the tan skin
yeah.
from my dad.
Yeah.
My mom's not at all.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, introduce yourself a little bit. I want to get to know you a little bit because I'm literally meeting you for the first time now. So tell us about you.
I grew up in Clear Lake, Texas, about 20 minutes south of the city. I went to high school there. I have 2 younger brothers, Jake and Jansen. We were a sports family. My dad played basketball in college. My mom played softball. Myself and both brothers played baseball. My middle brother and I played at the professional level, and my youngest brother played in college. My youngest brother is now in aviation engineering, and my middle brother is a scout for professional baseball. I am currently in oil and gas sales. I played professional baseball for 10 years. Got drafted out of Clear Creek High School in 2008 by the Philadelphia Phillies. I got traded here to the Houston Astros, played for the hometown team for 2 years, which was
that's amazing.
pretty awesome. And then I finished my career in Miami and San Diego, so I got to play in some cool cities.
Yeah.
And
those are like the top cities I would choose.
Perfect weather, good people, great food. So I didn't have anything to complain about.
So maybe Yankees.
Yeah, something.
Although you may not like them.
No, indifferent.
Yeah.
And now, I'm back in Houston, single. I have a 6-year-old daughter, Finley, who lives in Miami, and I just spent the full summer with her, so that was great. She starts her first day of first grade in 2 weeks.
Wow.
So, that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Okay.
I like hanging out with my friends. I like golf, reading, anything on the water.
Nice.
Pretty simple guy.
On the water, like beach or lake?
Beach preferably.
Yeah.
Getting my tan on. Wakeboarding, surfing, swimming, anything. I grew up competitive swimming, so water's kind of been a part of my life for a long time.
Nice. I love Miami. I'm there a lot. I just said I lost my iPad in Florida. Not lost, left it there. But I go to Miami area like once a month.
I like it to visit, and like I said, my daughter's there now, so it'd be good to go visit often. I didn't really like living there. A ton of traffic, drawbridges, people honking at you.
Yeah, well, it's a bunch of East Coasters.
Yeah, it was a lot, but the culture was great. A lot of different ethnicities, cultures.
Yeah, food.
Their food was fantastic. Beaches.
I love the weather down there. Most people might disagree, but I love like hot and humid.
The overall weather is great.
It's better than Houston weather.
Rains every day, which kind of didn't like. But
almost. Yeah.
Overall, yeah, it's great. I mean, San Diego was my favorite place that I played in. I mean, because you talk about perfect weather, 75 every single day, sunny, everybody's happy.
Yeah.
Just perfect. Just too expensive. And then
way too expensive.
Miami was second, and then Houston, obviously.
Okay, so then let's do like a little this or that to just kind of get to know you. Okay, so would you pick hot weather or cold weather?
Hot.
Hot. Okay, good answer. What about sweet or salty?
Sweet.
Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's your favorite, like sweet or dessert?
Oh gosh, red velvet cake.
Red velvet
or
cake.
Anything with peanut butter, I'm good. And actually, oh god, that's so hard. Cinnamon rolls too. Cinnamon roll cookie from
Cinnamon
Crumble
rolls are fire.
was my favorite.
Oh yeah,
Crumble
I've
cookie
had
that
that
I ever
one.
had.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. I'm a sweets guy, and then Sour Patch Kids for candy. That's kind of an issue.
Sweet and sour.
Yeah, all the sweets. So.
I was always like when I would go to the movie theater as a kid, get the sour punch straws.
Yep.
But also, I'm a chocolate person, so I would also get chocolate covered raisins.
Can't go wrong there. Chocolate's great for me too. Like I don't the desserts. I don't really discriminate against anything. I'll eat it.
Okay, what about? Now I'm hungry. Steak or chicken?
Steak.
Yeah, good answer. Spicy or not spicy?
A little bit of spice. I'm not crazy. Like I have some Louisiana buddies that are like, this isn't that spicy, and I'm crying.
They're crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, like medium to a little bit hotter than medium spice for anything, wings, crawfish, anything like that.
Yeah.
But nothing. I don't want to be sweating my whole sitting.
Yeah.
So spicy's fine, but
crying or drooling.
Nothing like jalapenos. I would like milder, sweeter jalapenos. I don't want to be. I'm not doing ghost peppers or anything crazy like that.
Okay.
Not happening.
What about, so you're obviously an athlete, so workout wise, or running or lifting?
Lifting.
Okay.
Cardio. I do play basketball often for my cardio.
Well, you're 6'4", so.
Yes, I like basketball. My dad played in college. It's been a part of my life for a long time, and I've gotten into it pretty competitively since I've been out of baseball. It kind of keeps those competitive juices flowing. I actually travel twice a year for 2 national tournaments. I'm going to New York in 3 weeks.
Cool.
So it's kind of cool to get to travel, but also, be competitive and not get paid.
Yeah.
Just hang out with the guys, go eat good. New York City's great. The other tournament's in Vegas. So 2 pretty cool experiences. Keeps me, that's the only kind of running you're going to catch me doing. I'm not
basketball.
I'm not going out and running, a 5K or anything like that. Basketball and then lifting is pretty much how I stay active. Okay.
So what about tell us about your dating history. Obviously you have a daughter, but what's your background with relationships, dating? Super curious since you were a professional athlete.
I was raised, my parents have been together for 36 years, a very religious, strict household.
Okay.
And I'm the oldest of 3 boys.
What does that mean? What religious
Just
strict?
Moral values. It's like you date one person, you settle down, things like that. That's been my background.
Okay.
Not play the field with 20 different women and try to figure out which one. You meet someone you're interested in, you see if you can make that work, and if you guys like each other, take that to dating, commit, marriage, long term, have kids, all that good stuff. That's the route my parents took. So that's kind of how I was raised, and that was what we were taught was the right way. Obviously, everyone has a different viewpoint on that, but my goal was to get married, settle down, have kids, and I went through high school. My parents were very strict as far as you don't get to party, you don't get to go out, you don't. I honestly didn't have a girlfriend in high school ever. So my main focus was baseball and grades. That was it.
Yeah.
And so I got through high school, and I got drafted by the Philadelphia Phillies at 17 years old and got a pretty hefty signing bonus, and then got shipped off to Clearwater/Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
As a 17-year-old kid with money.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what was going on.
Why'd you go to Florida if you were playing for the Philly?
That was where their spring training is. Like where the minor leaguers go, the rookie ball camp is in Clearwater,
Gotcha.
Florida.
Clearly, this is not a sports podcast, so I'll probably ask like so many dumb questions.
No, but that's like where you go to kind of introduction to
Train.
professional life.
Okay.
So now I'm in a very big party city, spring break city, beach city with money.
Yeah.
And I don't have any dating experience. I'm hanging out with men in the age range of 21 to 38. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of different personalities. There's a lot of different, but the biggest thing is they've been through life, and they've been through college. Most of them, they've been through dating. Some of them have been married. So they've all like lived their life, and I have not.
Yeah.
So now I'm in an area where I get to experience drinking for the first time. I had at that point never kissed a girl. I had never dated. I've never had sex. There's a lot of things a lot of firsts for me.
Yeah, you were just super green.
My mom had terrified me. Like, if you have intercourse, it's going to fall off. If you drink, your liver's going to fail.
Really?
Pretty much. She's that kind of, like, that's how she was growing up. And,
Okay.
I get into that stage, and I experimented, and I enjoyed what I was experimenting with. So I'm like, well, this isn't that bad.
Yeah, I still have my liver, so.
Yeah. And so I essentially went on a 2.5-year bender.
Wow.
And that was my college phase. It just happened in a different city with a little bit of money in a different stage of my life. So I learned after going through all that, it's like it was fun, but I don't, like, I more want what my parents have. I think that's with a lot of people in dating. They kind of see how their parents were, and that's kind of what they strive for or don't strive for, per se. So I wanted that. I wanted a long-term marriage where, that my parents never had any issues growing up. So after that, I met someone back home during an off season, and I ended up having a 2.5, 3-year relationship with, and then ended up getting called up to the major leagues. And that was a whole nother level of being in big cities, being fake famous at that point. I wasn't a big time name or anything. But it's like, I can go do different things. I can go to these exclusive restaurants and nightclubs and see these girls and have these experiences that I couldn't have before. So I want to experience.
Kind of like do whatever you want to an extent. Yeah.
You have status, which is what a lot of men are going for.
Right.
Is status. You have, things you can do that other people can't. So I didn't think I was going to marry the girl I was with, even though we had been in a long-term relationship. So we mutually split, and she understood, and I kind of went about my business and had another 8 to 10 months of living it up. And then I met my now ex.
Can I ask why the 3-year girl, you didn't want to marry her?
So the thing with sports in general, and this ended up being the Achilles heel with my most recent ex/baby mama, you don't spend a lot of time together. So between road games, that's 16 days in the month, I'm gone. Between off season, there's 8 to 10 hours a day of training. So more or less, it's more of a convenience thing when it comes to athletes dating. I think so. Just like someone, say someone in the oil and gas industry or whatever industry you want to say they're gone half the month and they're trying to date in the initial stages of dating, like, that person, but do you really know that person? And even when you're home and together, you're still working 8 to 12 hours a day.
So almost just to like have someone?
Have a partner, have someone to go to dinner with, have an intimacy relationship with.
Yeah.
And it might be bad to say, but it's kind of like someone that's along for the ride.
Okay.
And that's kind of where I felt with the girl that was kind of 2.5, 3 years. It was like, it's been fun, but there's something missing. And I don't have that exact answer, but I'm kind of old school. It's like when you know thing, and it was like, I can't sit here and definitively say yes. So it's not fair to you.
That's so funny you say that, because on one of our previous episodes with Zach and Carly, they're a married couple, and he was a baseball player, but their episode was called "When You Know, You Know?" question mark.
Yeah.
Because I was asking them, like, is it true? Like, when you know, do you know? So, and they said, yeah, that it definitely.
I've heard that more times than not. And again, I kind of told you before the show, like I'm no expert, and
Yeah.
nobody is.
If you're watching this, you're not an expert.
Yeah, no one's an expert. I'm just here giving my opinions based on past experiences that I've had, that close friends have had, that maybe my parents, and obviously there's a generational gap between myself, my parents, and that. I mean, things are way different now than they were in the 70s and 80s. That's
Right.
Things are going to be different in 2040 than they are now. So, but yeah, I transitioned kind of back into the party life. Let me experience this Major League Baseball player lifestyle. And yeah, it was
Why
fun.
did you do this?
There's a stigma to him, and kind of probably we'll get into that later. It's like there's a stereotype for athletes, which I don't think is always accurate. I don't think it's any different than if you walked into any corporation in Houston, you'll find the same cliches, you'll find the same cliques, you'll find the same kind of stereotypes. In the real estate world, oil and gas world, day-to-day world, whatever you want to see it as, whatever industry, it's all the same. Athletes just get stereotyped because they're in the limelight, they're on TV, they're semi-famous or famous. They have 1 million followers on Instagram, a blue check mark, something like that. So there's a lot of things that come with the territory. Some of them accurate, some of them not. But so I transitioned back to the party life, and I had fun. But then again, all things come to an end, and I was over it. So I met someone that I got along with pretty well, and we ended up getting pretty serious to the fact that we moved in together, ended up getting engaged and trying to have kids, and got pregnant. And then when I retired and we started spending a lot of time together, I think we both kind of realized, like, we don't have as much in common as we thought. Our relationship was more of a convenience thing for both of us. And it's kind of I love my daughter to death. She's my pride and joy, but it was kind of a quick trigger. Like, we're engaged, and my ex had some medical conditions that were going to make it harder to get pregnant. So it's like we chose to, try to start having a kid because we thought we were going to get married the next year. We ended up getting pregnant, having a baby, and down the road, mutually split.
Okay.
And now we're managing through co-parenting. So that's kind of dating history in a nutshell. Now I'm back single again. I've been.
So how long ago did y'all split up?
2019.
Okay.
End of 2018. My daughter was almost
like
1.
5 years.
It's been a while, and I've been single ever since. Haven't really had a long-term relationship. Just actively dating.
Yeah. So I want to kind of press on you for a second, because I'm curious. So like the way you were raised, I would assume like the right thing to do would have been to get married because you had a kid.
Absolutely.
So how did you navigate that?
I had a lot of family issues. First of all, having the baby out of wedlock, and then not attempting to make it work. And that was an explanation to my parents and grandparents, and there's a lot of biblical people in my family, and I completely understand.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere. Our relationship wasn't going anywhere. It was not going to get better. We attempted counseling before we made a decision on that, and neither one of us thought it was worth it to get married just because we had a child. So that was a decision we made mutually. That we thought, the cliche saying is 2 happy households are better than 1 unhappy one. So that was a decision my ex and I made together, and we stood by it, and are still standing by that today. And we have a good co-parenting relationship now. She is engaged as of recently, so she's taken that next step in her life, and obviously my daughter's involved in that. But it was a decision that wasn't taken lightly, but I wasn't about to be someone that just said, oh, regardless of beliefs, family beliefs, biblical beliefs, anything like that. I wasn't about to be that person that just settled because we had a child. Because
Gotcha.
long term, that's only going to affect the child.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not about to put my daughter in a situation where she sees two unhappy parents trying to make it work just for her. In the end, she's going to be the one that suffers from that.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think, well, it doesn't really matter what I think, but I think that it's better to take that approach. I'm assuming y'all split when she was pretty young.
1 year, almost one.
Okay,
Yeah,
so she won't remember.
Absolutely.
That I think to me is the most important thing when it comes to like either when kids are involved, either staying together or splitting up, is like making that decision and sticking to it before they can remember it.
Yeah.
Because my experience, my parents getting divorced at like a critical age of about 5 years old, where like you're kind of forming your entire worldview around that age.
Mm-hmm.
It's extremely traumatic and it causes like so many issues, especially once you split and then the households are still unhappy.
Right.
So I respect people who can like make a decision early, because I see a lot of people who like struggle back and forth of like, well, should we stay together? I don't know if I want to date with a child. Like this would be, you know, the right thing to do and my family will approve of it, but I know I'm not happy, and just tug of war with that for years until making up their mind and the kid's already, you know, 5 or something.
I've thought about that multiple times. Like my daughter's 6 now. She has a big personality and she's very aware of what's going on. Mm-hmm. I mean, clearly she doesn't know about my ex and I's past situation, but she gets the whole like, I'm daddy, she's mommy.
Yeah.
We live in different areas now. This is my time with dad. This is my time with mom. Mommy has a new boyfriend. Mm-hmm. She gets it, and I think to your point, if we would have just now been separating, she gets it, but she's also going to be in a choice at 6 years old where she's going to feel like she has to make a choice as to which parent do I want to go with and gravitate to. Like when they're so young,
it's going to feel chaotic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then who knows how that's going to affect her childhood down the road as she gets older. So
right.
Good thing about splitting at a young age, you know, the court system puts it in place. It's pretty standard how the possession goes and visitation and things like that. So it's not perfect, obviously. Mm-hmm. You know, ideally I think a 2-parent household is better than one, but the best thing we can do now is be the best co-parenting unit we can. Mm-hmm. And you know, we both know, and everyone that's in a similar situation to me knows, at some point Finley's going to come say, hey, what happened with you and mom? Maybe when she's in high school or college or whatever. And then at that point, you know, we have a productive conversation about it. And she understands, and then...
And she might never really ask, like, she might not care.
She might not, but I think, you know, I think kids will get curious, and then other kids talk, and she'll have her friends that parents have been married forever, and then some split ones. So it may come up, it may not, but you know, as a parent, we just want to be prepared. And
yeah. So what are you looking for now in dating? Like, what's the goal here?
I would like to settle down. Obviously, I'm open to more kids. At the same time, I have Finley. So if it doesn't work, I honestly, to backtrack on that, I don't want to wait till I'm 45 to have a kid. You know, that's fine if people want to do that. Again, this is all my opinion. I don't want to be, you know, 65, 70 years old when a kid's graduating college. It's just personal how I feel about the whole situation. But I'd like to get married. I'd like to have more kids if that's in the cards. If not, so be it. But as far as dating right now, I'm casually dating.
Yeah.
My approach more is like, am I connected with someone? More of a kind of you know approach is how I'm approaching it. More of when I was an athlete, I think it was kind of trying to force things. For instance, I got tired of partying, going out, drinking, partying, seeing different girls, all that stuff. So I wanted to settle down. So the first person I came across,
I see.
I ended up, because you know, we got along, we had decent chemistry, we liked the same things, so we dated. And then I saw the other partying phase of Major League Baseball, so I went through that again, and then I stopped. And then happens to be my baby mama / ex, was the first person I met after I went through that stage. And it's like, okay, I'm getting older. I ultimately want to have kids and settle down. So now we get along. She's attractive. We have good times together. So yeah, like, let's date. Let's see where it goes. It progressed. And then we got to that situation. And now I have all the time in the world when I don't have Finley. My majority of the time with her is during the summer. So I have time to spend with people. I have time to get to know them. I have, more. I'm not stressed on a 12-hour workout schedule, playing a 162-game baseball season, which is really 220 days, gone half of every month, worried about working out, traveling, perform, trying to make money, put food on the table. Like, now my life is much more relaxed. So
yeah, you're with the normal people now.
I'm in oil and gas sales. There's a lot more consistency in my schedule and my life. So I feel like I can be more in tune with dating.
Okay. You said you're casually dating. What does that mean?
I'm going on dates with different girls.
Okay.
Nothing's progressed to focusing on one girl more seriously.
Is that because you don't want serious, or because you haven't found someone you want to be serious with?
I haven't found someone I want to be serious with. I mean,
Okay.
that's another thing now with dating. My daughter is number one, first and foremost. So that's kind of a different wrench that's thrown in with dating now. It's like, she's number one. She's going to be always in the back of my head when I'm going on dates. So the number one question I'm going to ask myself when I go on a date with a female is, and I could be wrong, I'm not perfect, but it's like, do I think this person is ready to be a stepmom?
Okay, so let's talk about that. So when you're asking yourself that question, what does that mean to be ready to be a stepmom?
It's more where are they at in their life, career-wise, dating history. Have they been around kids before? Do they have kids do they have siblings with kids, friends with kids? It's easy for someone to have a connection, like, say someone's connected with me and they think I check all of their boxes, whatever they may be. They're like, it's easy for them to say, oh, he has a kid, that's fine. I'm okay with that. But if you haven't been around kids, if you don't know if you even want kids in particularly, do you really know that? And I don't want to put Finley in a situation where I've never introduced her to anyone. So I don't want to put her into a situation where I introduce her to someone that says they're ready for a kid. She becomes comfortable around them for a 6 to 7 month period, and then that girl gets cold feet. Like, oh, maybe I'm not ready for a kid. So the whole process of, and that's kind of going back to the when you know stage. I'm a believer in that. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for and banking on.
Yeah.
But, I've went on a number of dates where they've told me they're not ready to be with someone that has a kid. So it's like, okay, well,
how does that feel?
Easy.
Like, is that just, how do you react to when you hear that?
I don't hold any grudge towards anyone that says that, because I completely understand it does make the situation completely different. Like, you're talking about another human life in there, and I know a lot of women envision themselves as meeting Prince Charming, settling down, having kids of their own. So I don't hold any ill will towards someone that would say that. For me, in my situation, I'm a little bit different because Finley lives in Florida, so I don't have Finley full time. I have her once a month when it's not the summer. So as from a female perspective, you're talking about 3 days a month outside of the summer that you would be dealing with my daughter. Obviously, holidays. So during the holidays is a little bit different, but still,
Sure.
As far as,
it's not a constant weekly thing.
It's not something
typical.
you're gonna have to be dealing with every single day, which I think would be a lot harder, especially viewing it from a female perspective.
Right.
I'm
That's
taking
true.
on a kid full time.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah.
And for me, speaking on the same note, if I met a girl that had kids, what am I looking for? What do I think? Like, obviously I can't be judgmental. I have a kid myself. So I'm not going to sit here and say I won't date someone with kids, but what's the father's role in the kid's life? Is he active in their life? Because I do not want to take on 2 more kids that aren't mine, but their father's not present. So
like
I'm expected,
being a father to
right,
them.
I'm expected in this relationship to now provide financially, be a father figure just because their father's not present.
Right.
And I know that is a situation with some people, and there's
For
no
sure.
that's no disrespect. Like, I don't want someone that's watching this to think like, oh, he's a because he doesn't want to date someone whose father's not present. Well, that's just a personal thing for me.
Right.
Because you take on a lot of burden as a man when it's a difference between being a stepfather and a full-time father. So if a father's not present in the child's life, then my role is going to be more of a father
For sure.
than a stepfather, and that's not something that I want to do.
Right.
And some people might. That's like, I would like more kids of my own. I'm going to continually be an active, figure in my daughter's life no matter what. She's in a different state. I travel there. She comes here. So all of these things, I'm very transparent and upfront when I do date. Like, I'm not hiding my kid.
Right. And some guys do that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're aware of that, but I have a friend who, she's big on the apps. Well, she said she's taking a break until fall. And I was
Smart.
like, she said that the other day. I was like, why fall? She's like, I don't know, just gonna have a hot girl summer, and then fall comes around, and I feel like I look better in the fall because I can wear cuter outfits, so I'll start dating again. I was like, okay. That was actually Blakely. She's done a podcast, but she has told me 2 or 3 stories of guys that she met on the app, and the apps, they show like have kids, don't have kids, or want kids. Something along those lines, and it will straight up put like no kids, or just they'll conceal that question, and she'll start talking to this person, maybe go on a few dates, and like until it comes out. And I remember 2 specific stories. Both times they just kind of randomly in conversation said something about my daughter, and she was like, "You're who?"
Oh man.
And they're like, "Yeah, my daughter. Like, I have a daughter." And she's like, when did you tell me? When were you gonna tell me that? And like, I just blew it off. Like, tried to just slide it in there as if it was some casual thing. Like, yeah, I don't know. I've never been to Jamaica. Like, something as as casual as that. And she'll dump them because she's like, "What is wrong with you?"
Well,
and she doesn't want to be a stepmom.
Right.
So she's like, "This was a huge waste of time. 1, and 2, like, you lied."
So to me, that's concerning. Just looking at it from a dad perspective, it's almost as if I'm worried that these girls aren't going to like me if I tell them I have a kid, or they're not present in their child's life. Those are the 2, like, if you're not going to be upfront with someone in the beginning about you having a kid,
right,
that would be my thought process as to why you wouldn't. Like, I'm extremely proud of my daughter. She's amazing. And the circumstances and how it happened and all that is a whole nother thing. And it's really, I'm open to talk about it, but it's really not anybody's business. I just like to let it be known up front. Like, I have a child. Like, let's just cut to the chase. If you're not okay with that, or you think you might not be okay with that, let's not even, let's have fun. Let's have a couple drinks. Let's have dinner, and then we'll go forward. Because something about when you have, there can't be hesitation on the female's part, and I don't want to look like I'm hiding anything. There needs to be full transparency. Just like I would hope that a female would respect me enough, knowing there's another life involved, to be like, I don't see myself being a stepmom, or I'm not ready for kids yet. Okay, cool. Like, let's move on from that. Instead of, what ends up happening is you waste each other's time.
Right.
Like in this, what you said about your friends.
Yeah.
You go on 4, 5, 6 dates over the course of 2 months, then you find out, and it's like shock.
Right.
And now people get angry.
Well, and it's to me, that's never happened to me, but I feel like I would also then question like trust.
Oh, of course.
It's like,
You
you're
hid your
hiding a
kid.
kid. What? Yeah. What else are you hiding? Yeah, that's terrifying. And I do think you keep mentioning like specifying stepmom, which is important, because I think especially people who have never had a step parent, they don't really say, like, when they're saying like, oh yeah, I would be open to a guy with kids, it's not malicious. Like, that's a good thing, because you're being open and understanding by saying, yes, I would be willing to do that. But you also have to be responsible and educate yourself somehow, like, maybe ask friends who are in that situation or something. But being a stepmom isn't just like, oh, I get to hang out with the little girl sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard.
Yeah.
There's going to be challenges to
Yes.
it, and you haven't even crossed that bridge yet.
No.
But, you know, the relationship between the step parent and the child can be really tumultuous, even if it's a really great obedient child.
There's a lot of boundaries.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, I mean, I'm dealing with this now. My ex is engaged to another man.
That's right. Yeah.
So, you know, I've flown to Florida. He's flown here. He's been very receptive. I like him a lot. Doesn't mean there's not going to be any conversations down the road, but I mean, communication is key in every relationship, you know, business, personal, whatever it may be. But, you know, he has kids of his own as well.
Yeah.
So he's obviously a lot more understanding than someone that maybe doesn't have kids. But,
Okay.
you know, there's a lot of conversations that has to be had, you know, discipline. How do you talk to my child? What do I not want him to do? Like
Yeah.
and it's been very productive in my situation, but as you said, there's situations that aren't that way. There's situations where stepdad tries to do too much, stepmom tries to do too much without the consent of the other parent, and then there's, you know, fighting going on, whether that's, you know, I mean, sometimes physically, like the stepdad and dad are not on the same page. So
Yeah. Oh gosh.
it's not easy.
Yeah.
I mean, relationships aren't easy, but if you don't communicate, I think the bottom line of all of that is like communication is key.
I think something that also contributes to that is like resentment. And something that I always question is like you said earlier, your daughter's always going to come first, which is unusual because typically when you get married first and then have kids, your wife comes first.
Correct.
You know, when she's giving birth, you tell the doctor, save her, we can make another baby, I can't make another wife.
Correct.
So it sort of flips things on its head. Granted, it's the right thing to do to put your child first. But I think for women, when they're considering dating someone with a kid, that can be an insecurity for us of like, okay, well, you know, when it comes down to it, he's always going to choose her over me. Or, you know, and then if he actively does choose her over the girlfriend, it's just, it can be a sticky situation.
Correct.
So what do you think about that? Like, I have a question on here of like, do you think that you can ever love a woman as much as you love your daughter? How do you, being a single dad, wanting marriage and potentially kids in the future, what is your answer to that?
I don't know. The first answer would be no, because I see like how I am with Finley and everything, and it's hard to imagine. But again, it's my first child, my only child, so it's hard to imagine. But from kind of like we touched on earlier, my situation is a little bit different. So Finley's in Florida. Like honestly, if we're having this conversation and Finley lived in Houston with me full time, my answer may be different, but I don't know what it would be. And I do think that would make dating a lot harder.
For sure.
Because now you're having to tell someone that you're interested in, that may be interested in you, that I have my child every day. So you talk about the stepmom and mom situation now, that woman is going to feel a lot more like a full-time mother than a stepmom. Like I think the stepmom, the way to look at the definition is like partial involvement in the child's life. She's with the dad, she's going to show up, you know, they're dating, she's going to show up to some events, she's going to be, you know, hopefully a loving figure in that child's life, but that's going to be it. She's not going to be there every day, not going to be a disciplinarian, not going to be full-time, like where she feels almost burdened as that child is her own.
Yeah.
It's more of a, stepmom means to me like part-time.
Right.
And I think in the dating aspect of it, if a woman can feel that it's part-time, not full-time, I think that can be a little bit of a buffer.
Yeah.
But again, I think it really comes down to, that's why I said the questions I always have is, and it's going to be more of a process for me if I do find that person where it escalates to that point. Are you really ready for this? And I think I'll be able, with her living in a different state and things like that, I'll be able to break down to someone that, you know, I care about, that's interested in me and things like that. I'll be able to break down, like, here's what the schedule is going to look like during the summer. Here's what it looks like consistently on like when she's in school.
Yeah.
Here's what it looks like during the holidays. Like, here's what you're getting yourself into, essentially.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I have a much easier situation to lay that out for someone than, again, if my ex lived down the street or if Finley was with me full time.
Yeah,
Different.
I get what you're saying. It definitely is. It's an easier situation than if you had her full time.
For a female to adjust to.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I think where women might hesitate is like, because I think any good-hearted woman who has motherly characteristics, that wants children, someone that you would be interested in, the question isn't like, are you okay with being a stepmom, or are you ready to be a stepmom? Because I think the answer for that kind of person would always be yes. But it comes down to like, well, you're taking on all this responsibility and you're making a lot of sacrifice. In the summertime, I can't just jet off to Europe with my boyfriend because he has a daughter. So sacrifices like that.
Okay.
So I can see where women would start dating you and have to like get to know you a little bit and be like, is this worth that sacrifice?
Yeah. Correct.
And then maybe that kind of leads to what we talked about before with you, like encountering women who change their mind or like get cold feet. Yeah. Or it's just this, yeah, I'm ready, and then no, I'm not. And I don't know these women that you've dated, but
yeah, and I've been fortunate.
Contribute to it.
It could. Well, I've been fortunate that it hasn't gotten far enough along where that's been something. It's been pretty transparent after a couple dates early on.
Yeah.
But to that same sense, you know, if I am that into someone, I'm fortunate to have parents that are retired and would be able, if we wanted to go somewhere, you know, they're able to watch Finley.
That's good.
Now, granted, that would cut into my time, and I don't have as much time as normal, but you talk about sacrifices. Like, if I really do love and care about someone, I would be able to make that sacrifice. So, but those are all things, great points, things that I've thought about, things that are potential. They're not even roadblocks. It's just, it's the reality of the situation.
Yeah, just things you have to consider.
That could come up, but I think one thing you talk about dating as a whole, it's just communication.
Yeah.
And I think everyone should try. I think that's a huge problem with dating, whether people lie about it or don't tell people. It's like, what are my intentions? What's going to happen? Like, everything like that. Just being transparent about everything, not just what you want to be transparent about.
Right. Yeah. That's preach. Not even just about kids, like literally everything.
Everything. Yeah. And that causes a lot of friction in dating is...
Well, it shouldn't, because if you're just transparent, then where's the friction?
Yeah. Correct. It shouldn't. But what I was getting to is, you have a guy that says, I want to settle down, when he really has no intention of settling down.
Yeah, why do guys do that?
They want to get in your pants. I mean, they want to swoon you. I feel like it. And then
it's just like a conquest.
I think that would be a good bet. And then girls might say they want to settle down, but they really don't know. In theory, I think 90% of people, if they saw a storybook, like you meet someone, you fall in love, you're happy, you get married, you have kids, I think that's what they would want.
Yeah.
So in turn, you go on these dates and you're like, I want to settle down. I want to get married, I want to settle down. Like, in theory, yes, I think almost everyone you go on a date with wants that. But it's one thing to, do you really want that?
Okay, I'm going to let you answer for the guys. I mean, you kind of did, but you can elaborate on that. For the women, there's 2 reasons why a woman would ever say she doesn't want to settle down. I'm going to make that generalization for 95% of women. There might be the 5% that are just, for whatever reason, so turned off from relationships. Maybe they have blue hair, I don't know. But For this rest of us, 95%, the only two reasons a woman would ever say that, it's not because she doesn't want to settle down. The only two reasons a woman would ever say she doesn't want to settle down is, number one, she doesn't like you that much.
Correct.
She doesn't want to settle down with you. Number two, honestly, this would relate to my last episode. Number two would be she's on birth control. And birth control literally changes your hormones and makes you not want kids. It makes you not want a husband. It makes you want to be more independent. It literally, because it's taking away your femininity on a chemical level. Mm-hmm. So, and you see a lot of women who come off of it, hormonal birth control speaking, that they're then like, oh my gosh, I do want kids. Mm-hmm. Like, oh my gosh, I'm running out of time. Like, well, I thought I didn't want kids, now I do. Yeah. I hear that all the time.
True.
So those are the only two reasons. She doesn't like you or she's on the pill.
But I thought about career. Maybe they're trying to be a certain doctor, lawyer. I don't know. Maybe they got a bunch of school.
It's
maybe
not real. It's not.
You don't think so?
No, it's
maybe
not real. Because for any woman, if she's a doctor, she's a nurse, she's a CEO, doesn't matter. If she meets the right guy, she wants to settle down with him.
That's fair. I was thinking too, maybe they're going through hot girl summer. Maybe they're just having fun and they're living their best life, and
I just don't buy it.
Yeah,
I think those are definitely facades that women will put on, because if they're single and have been through it, lots of situationships, been hurt, then yeah, I want to have a hot girl summer because I'm tired of this.
Well, that's what I feel like dating has become a lot. It's like these girls and guys are going on a ton of dates and they're not getting the end result, so they're just like, screw it. Yeah. It's like, I'm just going to go out and have a good time. Yeah. Which I don't fault anyone for that, because it's become a numbers game. It's become hard. It's become, I mean, you look in Houston, you go to a lot of these bars, you see a lot of the same people, and then like hookup culture. Like, there's just all kinds of factors that are being thrown into dating nowadays. And the options are a lot, like, this isn't the 70s anymore. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just, there's so many different factors in dating now. So it's just like, a lot of people, I feel like, have given up. And those are the people that'll be like, oh yeah, I'm looking to settle down. And then they're like, I'm just saying that because it's the cliche answer. Like, hopefully this date goes well.
So why would guys do that? They're literally just using it as a tactic to have sex with her?
Guys saying that, what do you mean? Like guys saying
why they would say they want to settle down, court her, pursue her.
I think it, yeah.
I mean, get right to the cusp of like, do you want to be my girlfriend, and then bolt. Why do guys do that? Literally just for sex.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think it depends on the situation and the guy and the girl, but yeah, I would say if you're generalizing everything as that, it's like, yeah, I mean.
Wouldn't it be easier though to just go to a bar and find a girl that just wants to hook up?
I think that honestly,
it seems like more efficient that way.
Yeah, but that to me, I hate staying out till 2 a.m. Like, I don't want to I don't want to go to a bar and have to get a million drinks and get super drunk, and I'm going to be hungover for 3 days to try to court a girl into going home with me at 2 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to have drunk sex and both probably not going to remember it, or it's going to be whatever. And you're going to wake up and someone's going to be like, why did I do that? And the other person's going to be like, all right, see you later. And then it's a lot of effort. At least I feel like people feel better about the situation if they go through the formalities. We talk about, like, everyone says, I want to settle down and get married and have kids, all that. It's like become the standard. It's like, okay, well, I feel better about myself if I go on a date, if we do the whole date thing and we have a nice happy hour, drinks or whatever, and then, you know, maybe it doesn't happen right away. Maybe we go on another date, and then, I don't know, it depends on the guy. And again, like, I don't like generalizing, like we talked about athlete culture, just because athletes are in the spotlight and they get generalized a lot. I don't like, it all depends on the guy and the girl. Like, are there guys that literally will go through whatever it takes just to get laid? Yes, absolutely. There's some guys that are going through a lot. They have no idea. They're just going with the flow. And sometimes that happens, and then they're like, they either regret it or, you know, they don't know what to think, and they, you know, your mind goes all over the place. So there's a lot of different, I think, situations and scenarios.
Yeah, but your generalization is probably the majority. Yeah. I mean, it's probably true.
I think.
I think it comes down to shame. Because I think you hit the nail on the head of like, this is easier. I mean, it's more efficient to just go to the bars, start early, go out at 6 instead of starting at 8, and then find a girl, go home. But there's like a dirtiness, there's a shame probably associated with that for most people. Yeah, versus if you're pretending that you're going to date or convincing yourself that you're going to date, and then you sleep with her, then you don't feel as bad when you walk away.
Or him. Same thing with a girl. It's like,
yeah.
What are you going to get stereotyped as if you leave the bar with a guy at 2 a.m. and go sleep with him? Oh, she's a hoe. She was drunk and she left with a guy. As compared to, oh, they went on 2 or 3 dates, they got to know each other, and then they hooked up, and then they went their separate ways. Like, a lot of times people aren't going to know y'all went your separate ways, or that you went on 2 or 3 dates. A lot of people might not even know the story.
Yeah.
But we unfortunately live in a world where people care about what other people think too much. Mm-hmm. Girls way more than guys. It's like...
You think?
Yes. Girls do not want to be thought of as a hoe. Guys, I think there's a lot of guys that don't care. Like, I don't want to... Like, I don't want to be generalized as a man hoe. But I feel like girls... more emotional, like y'all are scientifically more emotional.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think like there's a lot of like, I don't want to be that girl, you know. And sometimes a guy being a man hoe, unfortunately / fortunately, creates curiosity amongst females. They're like, is he really? Like, does that mean he's good at this and that and the other? So it again, it all depends. It's situational based.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's, again, personal opinion. I'm not.
Yeah, that's complex because it's also when you say girls care more about what people think.
Not girls. No, everybody. And society in general has started, guys and girls, care about your reputation, your status.
Status, for sure.
Status. It's like...
follows and likes and what do I look like on Instagram?
Whether or not it's you or not.
Right.
Am I depicting myself being a great dad on Instagram and I'm not? Am I depicting myself being rich on Instagram and I'm not? Like, you can be whoever and whatever you want to be in today's society, which is another thing that's ruining dating.
100%.
And I don't know what the answer to, like, I don't know. I think a lot of it is intuition, a lot of it is gut instincts and trusting yourself and trying to get to know someone. But you could still get, I mean, everybody in this world's been screwed over. No matter who you are, whether that's in business, in a relationship, whatever it may be. Like, everybody's been screwed over. So you have, especially if you've been screwed over in a relationship, those thoughts are in the back of your head going into a new relationship. And that just, as you talk about factors and barriers and things that come into a relationship, there's another one.
Yeah.
So you talk about complicated. Like, no matter how you draw it up, dating is complicated.
For sure.
And it's not going to change.
I want to kind of, because you keep bringing it up, talk about the athlete culture. So I'll tell you, like, what I think you mean. Like, this, to me, this stereotype of an athlete, even a high school athlete, like not even just a professional athlete, any type of competitive athlete, is definitely someone who's a player, someone who is entitled, and kind of, someone who is a cheater. I'm going to loop that in with a player, because I was going to say someone who doesn't want to settle down, but that's not true. A lot of athletes do settle down, but then they also cheat. Yeah. So since you've been in that world, like, are those things true? Were they true for your teammates? Was that true for you at a time?
So I always try to, I told you earlier, I try to relate dating to, like, real life situations, not just he's an athlete or whatever. So if I went to an oil and gas company in Houston, if I went to a real estate firm in Houston, and I went to a Major League Baseball team, this is, again, personal opinion.
Sure.
I take 25 guys off a Major League Baseball team. I take 25 guys from that real estate firm. I take 25 guys from that oil and gas firm. You're going to have, it breaks down into cliques.
Okay.
So every team I played with, it was generally the same. You have 25 guys. You have 5 guys that are married and faithful. You have 5 guys that are married and cheat on their wives. You have 5 guys that are single and living their life. You have 5 guys in relationships that don't know what they're going to do. And you have 5 guys that are in relationships and going all over the place.
Playing the fields.
It's like a situationship.
Okay.
So you say that maybe athlete culture, but that's just life culture. That's like where we are. And it is even more prevalent in positions like people that have money.
Why?
Status.
Why?
It's just because they have more access to different girls and different restaurants, different things that, quote unquote, we're all normal people, but people that have normal salaries can't do. And talk about the same, you just have access to a lot more.
Yeah.
Which piques curiosity, which piques interest. Like, I don't know why people cheat. But my guess is that it's availability, it's accessibility. It's like, oh, all these beautiful women are around me now, and I've never had this opportunity before. And you kind of just throw morals and everything out the window. I've seen it firsthand with friends, teammates, whatever you may, and I've seen it at every different level of life. I've seen guys that make 40 grand a year cheat on their wife, just like I've seen guys that make 30 million a year cheat on their wife.
Sure.
I've seen the most faithful best men ever that make 40 grand a year, and I've seen the most faithful best men ever that make 30 million a year. So I think, again, athlete culture, like, yes, there's a stereotype. I don't think it's fair, having been in a locker room. It's no different than going into a bar.
Really?
No, not at all. You're going to get, based on, if you want to base numbers and facts, you're going to you pull me 25 guys out of a bar on 20th Street. I guarantee you.
Do you think that the way they look would change those odds at all? Because when I think 25 athletes, I'm going to assume they're all relatively attractive and in shape.
And that's because of the media.
So, and let's say you level the playing field with income. So let's say, like, if we're comparing athletes who make $10 million a year and corporate guys who make $10 million a year. Those corporate guys, if there's 10 of them, maybe in Houston, maybe 10% are in shape. So one of them might be in super tip-top shape, whereas probably all 10 of the athletes are in at least decent shape. Do you think that tips the scale at all?
Not really.
As far as the accessibility you're talking about?
This goes back to the females too. It's like, there's females out there that $10 million is $10 million. It doesn't matter what you look like.
Yeah, that's
so,
true.
Like, it takes 2 to tango. So that comes into play too. It's like, where are these guys hanging out? What is their intention? What are the girls' intention? I mean, successful is successful. It doesn't matter what profession you're in. I think athletes get overblown because they're in the spotlight. They're on national TV. They have 1 million Instagram followers. They have a blue check mark, which now you can buy a blue check mark.
Yeah,
And
yeah, you can.
You can,
Did you buy yours?
No, I did not buy
okay.
mine.
No judgment. I'm just wondering.
I did not buy mine. But, you're also now, people are using that. Like, I'm verified. Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, verified by who?
You're paying $14.99 a month for a check.
Yeah.
Could be the situation. Like, it doesn't make you, like, but it really isn't any, like, there's certain girls that if they find out you make $10 million, it doesn't matter if you own your own business or if you're a professional athlete, they're going to treat you the same way. Like, from an athlete perspective, it just depends, what am I looking for? Like, an athlete on minimum salary can call a club in New York ahead of time and say, hey, I play for the Houston Astros. I'd like a table tonight. And 99% of the time, you're going to get a table. And you're going to go in that club, and you're going to have status. And the girls that are there are going to be like, oh, he's got a table. He must be somebody.
Right.
And at a minimum salary in the majors, you're making $600,000, which is great money. But you're not a multimillionaire.
Sure.
You're not balling on any level, but you're gonna get girls to come to your table because you're somebody.
Yeah.
So it's just it's all relative, like depending on where you are, who's there. I don't like athletes again. It's glorified because they're in the spotlight, and the media only shows the good-looking athletes that make a lot of money. You know, look at the commercials in Houston. The Astros, Alex Bregman.
Yeah, you see the same.
$200 million.
Players.
Jose Altuve,
Yeah.
$300 million. Jeremy Pena, good looking, coming up.
Super good looking.
Correct, about to make a ton of money. Lance McCullers, $80 million. Like they're not advertising rookies. They're not advertising. So again, it's all, a lot of these factors come into play. So athlete culture, there's a stereotype. 100%.
But it's not what we think it is, basically, is what you're telling us.
Like, you have 5 or 6 guys on that team that fit the stereotype. Yeah, man whore, cheats on his wife, all that. Yeah, of course. There's 5 or 6 guys on that team that.
But there's also 5 or 6 down at Schlumberger.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's also 15 to 20 on that team that are great dudes. So.
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair. I think it's often it's a stereotype.
What was your experience with the women? Because I would also say that there's a stereotype for women who sort of chase athletes, who are like groupies or whatever you would call them.
Every city you go to, you check into a hotel. It's going to be a Ritz-Carlton. It's going to be 4 Seasons. It's going to be something nice. There's the groupies, cleat chasers that know the hotel you stay at. They're sitting at the bar. They're waiting for you.
Oh, wow.
They're the ones that it takes one drink and they're going to go to your room and they're going to hopefully they want to get pregnant, that kind of thing. Then
that's crazy. They want to get pregnant.
There's that again. That's a small group.
Sure.
And then you have the groups that's constantly sliding into the athletes' DMs or liking their pictures. I mean, that to a sense, like, I don't know, like how many girls in Houston probably like Jeremy Pena's Instagram posts?
Yeah.
I would if I was a girl. How many girls in Houston wish that, like Riley Green or David Beckham or somebody like that will slide into their DMs? Like every girl.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, is that a bad thing?
Chasing it's a bad thing.
Chasing
for
is
sure.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
But
did you see a lot of, because I like based on the stereotype of male athletes, I would say like they're like womanizers, going back to kind of what I described. Like these are guys who like use women, like, but are they using women or are women using them?
I think it's a combination, and that again goes back to what are we telling each other when we meet, or when we text, or when we message on Instagram. It's like, what are your intentions with this?
Yeah.
And there's some of these, I guess you would stereotype them as womanizers, are being straight up, like in their DMs or whatever, like, I just want to bang you.
Yeah.
And there's girls that say, okay. Mm-hmm. So it's like, is that the guy's fault or the girl's fault? So it's kind of a catch-22 deal. Yeah. It's a little bit of both. You have girls that slide in, you have guys that slide in, it's a little bit of both. You have, the common thing now is like, follow someone, like their picture, see if they like yours back, and then a DM is exchanged, like, that's where we are.
What is that?
So like the whole, like, somebody will follow somebody, and then they'll like each other's pictures.
Oh, just kind of that.
To see.
Okay.
And then a DM will be sent, and you see where it goes. That's,
Okay.
That's what happens with what I've dealt with famous athletes. They have 1 million followers. I played with a guy that had 1 million something followers.
I didn't realize it was like a coordinated step process.
It's all, now everything's coordinated. Like it's all kind of a game now.
Interesting.
So yeah, the real answer is both.
Yeah.
You're going to have, it all depends on the stage of their life, where they're at. And you're going to have single guys that do it, married guys that do it, single girls, married girls, like the whole array of,
yeah.
It's both.
Obviously, we have so many options now with you, like, talking about Instagram. We have dating apps. So it's almost like everybody has this level of access that only these certain subsets used to have, like athletes, or if you're rich or whatever. Do you think there's such a thing as having too many options?
Yeah, and right now with dating apps, you can, and Instagram, You can throw out how much money you make. You can throw out what you do. You can throw out anything. There's millions of people on these apps. Millions. So someone's going to fall in your category, like looks-wise, which I think everybody has a grade, unfortunately. Like, I'm never going to grade somebody. But we all have a, you know.
Of like how attractive you are.
Correct.
Like you're a 7.
There's
or
a scale.
whatever. Okay.
And
not saying you're a 7.
yeah, thanks a lot. I'm just kidding. But so no matter what, you're going, like, there's a million 5s on Instagram, and there's a million 5s on Hinge, and there's a million 10s, or not 10, there's 10 doesn't exist, but you know what I'm saying. So now everybody has options, and anybody you can talk to that has dating apps, like I used to have dating apps, you just start scrolling and all of a sudden you've matched with 30 people. So for me, I touched on this earlier before we started the show. If you ask a girl what she wants to eat, just anything, it's going to be like, most of the time, they don't know. So then even go further than that. Like, say you've never eaten cereal before. I go to the grocery store and I'm in front of 100 boxes of cereal. How do you choose? You're going to choose, like, I'm going to look at the ingredients, and then I'm going to see what box is the coolest. And then in the end, you're just going to have to pick one. And that's kind of how the dating apps work. You pick one. Maybe, like, you might have some more substance than that. Like, maybe he sent me the most clever, like, one-liner. But guess what? You still have 28 other guys on the back burner that you obviously thought were attractive because you liked them. So now you go on this date and say, oh, it was good. But in the back of your subconscious brain, you're like, well, that other guy was pretty hot too. And he sent me a pretty clever line. I'm going to give him a chance. So now you go on a date with him. And say it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So it just becomes this very circular effect. And it's like, now all of a sudden I've gone on 7 dates. None of them were great. All of them were good. So now you're piecing together this Hercules man that you want. Well, this guy was more attractive. This guy was funnier. This guy was better in bed. This guy took me to a nicer place. I don't know, whatever. Like, say whatever you want. Now all of a sudden, we got 8 guys that were all good but not great. So now you're juggling, gosh, do I go on a date with him this week? Oh man, no. So now you're like, how do you choose?
Yeah.
And you're waiting for Prince Charming that, you know, in all reality, there's no 10. Like, 10 doesn't exist. Your
no one's
10,
perfect.
Your 10 might exist. Like, my 10 might exist, but in all actuality, like, no one, like you said, perfect. No one's perfect.
Right.
Like, so how do we change this? What do we do about it? It's got to be more, like, it's hard because, you know, you start drinking, you start scrolling. You start, like, people think more options is better, and maybe, like, in theory that sounds better, but I don't think so personally in dating. It's like, you have to be more intentional if you're really looking to settle down.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you have Hinge. Delete your Hinge, start over, and maybe give the first 2 guys you match with more than a 1-date opportunity. Look, those other guys aren't going anywhere. Those other girls aren't going anywhere. So, like, maybe try to be intentional with 2 people.
Right. And
see if that can evolve, and then go from there. But a lot of people, females are on a time clock. Some, especially like in their 30s, whatever reason, I get it, the biological clock, and we start to panic. But if you're really looking for that guy, you got to throw that out the window. Like, no matter what that takes. Same thing with guys. And
or
girls.
you just have to pick one.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, everybody worries about settling, but if you're always looking for something better, there is something better out there. Like, there's someone better looking than me, that has more money than me, that has a better job than me, that you can go down the list of, like, there's probably someone that has better checklists maybe per se. Like, I think I'm great. You think you're great. But it's like, if you look at it, like, there's always someone.
Yeah, I think if you think that that's true, if you think there's always somebody better out there, then that's when you're not ever going to find your person, because that your person is someone abstract.
I meant like materialistic. Like, someone makes more money than me. Period. like out there.
Yeah, but if someone has their list of things that they want, let's say it's a short list. Let's say you're just kind of starting with the basics of like, I'm attracted to this person, someone who is smart, someone who is in shape, and someone who wants a family.
Yeah.
So you're swiping right on right. You swipe right if you like them, or you're clicking like or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the people who seem to check those boxes on the profile.
Yeah.
But then once you're actually going out and meeting with these people, like you're saying, in the back of your mind, you know that there's more profiles to swipe on. So
Yeah.
you're like, well, he checks those main boxes, but
There's always the but.
yeah, but maybe there's someone who there's more of a spark with, or he makes more money, or he's hotter. Like,
And that's the here we are.
there's something better and better. Like, you can't just settle on one thing. Not meaning settle as in below your standard, but
Right.
settle as in make a decision to make a commitment.
Right. And then to the whole standard thing, you have to know, especially as a female. I've read about this, I've seen it many times. If you are making a standard as you want a guy that is over 6 foot, that makes 6 figures, all that stuff.
I already know what you're gonna say.
Correct. You have to know as a female, you get a lot of females going, why can't I find this guy? Well, you're already in the less than a percent of a percent category. As crazy as that sounds, but that's the reality. And if you're going into dating like not knowing or not wanting to believe that that's the reality, less than a percent of a percent. So that means, hey, I'm going out with my girlfriends on 20 tonight. There's 1,000 people at McIntyre's. That means 2 guys in there are going to fit your mold. Mm-hmm. And if, again, we go back to the number scale, like if you're a 6 and that guy you want's a 10, he probably's not going to want you.
Yeah.
And vice versa. So it's like, you almost have to be a little bit harsh with yourself when it comes to standards and like, what do I want, you know?
But I also feel like that's not a real thing. Like it's a song or whatever, like 6'5" blue. How's it go?
The finance
The finance guy.
Yeah.
But like, a part of the reason of this whole podcast is because what's out there on the media, what's on the memes, what's in the movies, what's reality TV, is like feeding us these narratives that are not true. So like, now you have guys who think what you just said. Is he okay? Is he bothering you? Okay. You have guys who think, now there's this song out that think this is what women want. And so any guy who's not that is going to be like, well, why am I even trying anymore? And he's going to just keep using women, or he's going to give up. And the reality is, women don't actually think that. Like, it's funny, and like, is that ideal? Maybe for some women, but like, that's not like a deal breaker. He doesn't have to be 6'5". I've never dated someone who's 6'5". That's really tall. You're 6'4", and you walked in and I was like, is it gonna hit the ceiling? I mean, that's ridiculous. And someone who has a trust, I mean, for me, I don't think I like any of those qualities. Like the whole trust fund thing is kind of gross to me.
Yeah.
Because I just think of someone who's like wears polos and boating shoes and doesn't have a real job. He just has on daddy's money kind of thing. I don't know. That's gross to me. I don't think. I mean, a girl may want to use that guy. She might want to hang out with him to get on the boat.
And it all that goes back to kind of like we talked, intentionality. It's like, what are you really after?
Yeah.
I think that's what dating as a whole comes down to. It's like, if you just want to hook up, great. But people don't want to say that.
Yeah.
If you just want to be friends, great. But some people hesitate to say that. If you actually want to settle down, great, but act like it. Mm-hmm. And do the things that someone that was trying to settle down would do. And obviously, first and foremost, is be transparent and be honest. That's all that anyone can ask in dating.
Yeah.
And I think all of those things are overlooked and misstepped and lied about and twisted. And that's, I think, why, as a whole, we are where we are today.
For sure.
Because people cannot be completely honest.
Yeah.
It's like, I know I want this, but right now I'm having fun, so I don't want this right now. Or I don't know if I want this, but I'm going to say it, because saying the right thing, that's key in, a lot of things. Like, oh, I'm going to say what I think this person wants to hear. You talk about guys wanting to just do one thing. They're going to tell you everything you want to hear.
That's so infuriating. And it's wrong.
It is. But
yeah.
that is, it's simply because people don't want to tell the truth. They're scared of rejection. Like a lot, nobody likes to be rejected. They're scared of being told no. And that's why those things happen.
Yeah.
And that's been going on since even back in the quote good old days where dating was easy and all that. It was going on back then. It's just more magnified now.
Maybe. I don't know. I wasn't alive back then.
I wasn't, but I from what I understand, talking to older people about it, there was womanizers back then, there was cheaters back then, there was,
That's true.
It's been around. But with accessibility nowadays, everything's magnified.
So I want to talk about like the buckets that men put women into. I have been told, or I understand that, like, if a guy meets a girl, then she goes in this bucket. And how many buckets are there? Like, because you've got like the girl that you're just gonna hook up with. You've got the girl that's like okay, like that you would settle for. You have like the wife material that you're like, this she is definitely like could be someone that I will marry. And then I've also heard that there's one that's like the one that you think is out of your league. Like she's too good. And the only one with real commitment potential is the wife, like the third bucket.
Yeah.
What is that? What do you think?
I think, for me personally, it's like I try to simplify it as a yes or no. It's like,
okay.
Do I see myself with you or don't I? And it's really easy to put certain girls in the no based on the problem with
okay, but does the no also include the girls that you'll hook up with?
Yeah, I know I'm not I'm not marrying you.
Okay.
Like
so she could still be pretty and attractive, but go in the no pile. Yeah. Okay.
So
just curious.
Yeah, and that entails like we'll hook up on the first date. If you come over at 2 a.m., like all those, like.
So hook up on the first date is automatic in the no pile.
For me, it has been.
Okay.
Like, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's like, I just feel like.
But
I feel like as a girl, like you don't. I don't know. I really don't know. That's just kind of something. It's always been like that. It's like. You don't want it to be too easy as a guy. That's like my advice to females.
So what happens in your mind the next day? Like if you went on a first date with all good intention, like someone that you actually wanted to get to know.
Yeah.
And then you hook up with her. Like, what are you thinking about her the next day?
I'm thinking about like, for me as a guy, guys are very, I got testosterone going. If I'm going with the flow, I don't know. It's kind of almost like we want to be told no, like as a respect thing.
Okay.
It's like I don't want it to be this easy. So but if you tell me to come upstairs, I'm going to come upstairs. So I don't know. That's kind of like maybe it's a catch-22 thing.
For sure.
I don't know. Like I don't know what other way to say it, but it's like I don't want you to tell me to come upstairs.
Okay.
On a first date, but I'm going to, because I'm.
A guy.
Yeah. And that's what's going on the H word.
So do you think that it's fair the other way around? Like if the same scenario, if the next day, if she was kind of like, ugh.
Yeah, she felt bad.
No, if she felt that way about you, like, ew, like, why was it so easy and I don't want to date him anymore?
Yeah, she probably thinks like you've done that with multiple other girls. So yeah, I think that's 100% fair. I'm not saying that I've done it before.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know, maybe that's where we are nowadays. To the same sense, I am a very go with the flow person. So maybe I shouldn't be as judgmental about it, because like if I'm 34 years old and I have a kid, so I don't have a whole lot of room to judge people and whatever. But it's like, if the situation's right and we're flowing and it happens. So I also see that side of it, but the other side of it, it's like, I think it's a judgmental thing. It's like, I'm judging you, like, you've probably done that before, and you're probably thinking the same thing about me. So maybe it should just be a moot point. But for whatever reason,
I don't think we do think that. I don't. I mean, not if it was a date situation. Because I think if you're agreeing to go on an actual date with him, you're already making the assumption that he's not just a player womanizer.
Yeah.
And so then if you hook up on the first date, I think most women are just going to be like, oh, it was sooner than I planned, but like, no big deal. I still like him. It was a great date. Yeah. Like, it's not really going to change our perception of you.
Which is good to know.
But I think for men, that's not true. And I think they almost will use that to their advantage. Because they're concealing the fact that they're looking at her like she's a hoe. How many times has she done this? But he also knows that she's not thinking that. So he may kind of milk it for as long as he wants to keep sleeping with her. And then be like, I don't see this going anywhere.
True. Yeah, it's that, again, that fine line. It's like, what's the difference between going home with a girl at the bar at 2 a.m. and going on a date and then going home with her? The only difference is you spend a little bit more time together and you talked a little bit longer, and the guy probably spent a little bit more money.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm asking, why are females that go home with a guy from the bar at 2 a.m. shamed more than the girl that goes on a date and goes home with a guy? Because in the end, you're sleeping with a guy.
I think from I can't speak for men, but on our side, nowadays, I don't think there really is much shame in that. Like if I'm out with my friends and somebody wants to go home with a guy that she met, I don't really think twice about it. Like, I'm just gonna make sure that she gets there safely. Yeah. Like a lot of us girls share locations for that reason, or like share the ride location or whatever. Yeah. But other than that, like, do you? There's definitely no one's gonna be calling her the next day like, why did you do that? I can't believe you.
To my next
point.
But
I do think men see that and would shame her and look at her differently than the first date girl, but maybe not, because you're saying the first date girl also, she's now in the no pile.
So to my next point, again, a lot of my stuff is based on personal experience. I have had a situation where that happened, and I had to nearly get a restraining order.
Where you went on a date?
And hooked up on the first date.
On the date, okay.
And someone freaked out and was wondering if I was ever going to see them again, called me 80 times, 40 text messages, showed up at a place that I go eat a lot. It got very weird, and I've also had a text in the similar situation saying, you know, like, I feel bad, don't judge me. Well, now that you're saying that, I'm like, obviously gonna judge you.
Why?
Well, like why would you feel bad? Like, that's my point. It's like,
I think a girl saying that would feel bad because it wasn't like she didn't want to do that. Like, or maybe doesn't do that often, but it just kind of happened. Like, maybe the drinks were flowing, or there was a lot of chemistry, or whatever. She's ovulating.
Yeah, it's like it's like, that's just, to me, it's kind of like, okay, like, that's like, oh. Now I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. So that's kind of where I come from. It's based on...
she's kind of like shooting herself in the foot. She should just not say anything.
It's based on personal experiences. Most times that something has happened on the first date, it's been like, I don't want to say traumatic. That's very, like, it's not like the end of the world kind of thing, but it hasn't been a good experience for me. So maybe that's where and you know, there are a bunch of factors who play into as why.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been good. And like, so I'm stereotyping bubbling girls into my personal experience category, which is very small. Like, I understand we're in a, like, I'm 34 years old. Like, if I like someone, I like someone, and if it happens, it happens.
Right.
But there
We're all
should,
adults.
like, if we're both into it and it's going how it's going, there shouldn't be any questions after.
So knowing that, what would you think about a girl who says she doesn't want to have sex at all, like waiting until an engagement or marriage?
Well, that would be hard for me.
Aside from it being hard, I think that's the obvious.
I guess if I'm really into that person, that would be something that you have to respect. I hope to never come across that, because I'm a very emotional and physical person.
Okay.
And I think that's a big part of the relationship. And I mean, you don't know how long it's going to be until you have to, and you're basically holding out. I mean, what if that's a year? Like, that's crazy. And then you're going into it, that being an important part of the relationship. If you commit to this person and you get engaged or married, what if the sex is horrible?
I don't really subscribe to that even being possible. I'm not saying that I have waited until marriage, but I think if you're, I mean, how can it be that horrible? With a person that you're madly in love with, that you just said I do to, like, what?
What if you?
And,
what if the
it's
guy?
not like you never touch each other. You're gonna feel whether there's an ick or whether you're like, oh my gosh.
I know. What if you're in that situation and the guy can't get it up all the time, or he goes in 2 seconds? How's that gonna? That's probably not gonna be. That's probably not gonna be great, right?
No. But there's obviously ways to fix that.
Okay. Fair.
I'm playing devil's advocate, because if guys have all of these like preconceived notions about someone who's too easy, we don't want it to be too easy, but you also don't want it to be too hard, because if she wants to do the biblical thing and wait until marriage, you said it yourself, you respect that, but on the same token, you're kind of like, well, I don't know if I want that either. So it's kind of like,
it's a happy, it's a happy medium with everything. I would like to. I just know, I don't want to say I know, because I don't know anything about all that marriage, love stuff, because I think I was like in the in-between. But I would like to think that I know that you're not going to know if you love someone on the first date. It ain't happening. And to me, everyone says, like, if you're going to wait till marriage to have sex, that's because you love that person. So it's like, first date, I'm not going to know, no matter what. Yeah. That's kind of my thought on that whole thing. So it's like, if you're going to wait till marriage, that is, who knows how long that's going to be? Like, what does that even mean to the girl? It's like, so you're going to wait for the guy to ask you. What if the guy gets cold feet? What if the guy doesn't want to marry you because of that? Are you still going to stick to that? That's,
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different reasons that people might do that or want that, but I think my question was just exploring, like, what is the other side of the first date girl, or the girl that goes home at 2 a.m. But because guys can be really hypocritical, like you said yourself. We don't want it to be too easy, but we'll go upstairs.
Of course.
So it's like, yeah, we don't want the first date girl, but I don't want the girl who's super conservative and respectable either. So like.
But I think it's pretty easy. So I go on a date with someone. If they tell me, like, I want to wait till marriage, it's like, okay. And then
Are you gonna keep seeing her?
If that first date goes well, yeah. That's what that's my point too. I'm not gonna get to know, like, you're gonna get the basics on the first 2 or 3 dates, obviously. But
hopefully.
Hopefully. One of the basics, as far as, like, I'm from here, I have this many siblings, you're gonna get the basics. But when we're talking about connection, right? Like, I'm gonna spend the rest of my life with you, potentially 40 to 50 years. It's gonna be much deeper than that, from what I understand. Again, I've never been there. It's like the whole when you know thing. Like, maybe there are people out there that have gone on 3 dates and they're like, this is my person. And I would love to see the percentages of like successful marriages in something like that, because I don't think that number would be very high.
Yeah.
I may be wrong.
No, I think you're right. I don't think it's high. It happens, but I don't think that's a high. That's not most people.
That's a rarity. But for me, it's like, it's going to be a process to get to know you and to see if we're like on that level. Mm-hmm. So if you're really into me, why are we going to give myself up intimately when we've had a few drinks on night one?
Yeah.
If, like, another thought could be, maybe she just wanted to get some D. Maybe she was using me.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, like when I talk about the too easy thing, it's like, there's a lot of things that can, because guys can get mind effed too.
Yeah.
You know, just like girls. And especially when they've been through it.
So, okay, so on a more positive note, what puts a girl in the yes bucket? So this would be good, like, advice for women and just knowledge to know, like, what. So we know, like, don't have sex on the first date. That's probably going to put you in the no bucket.
Look, if you.
I mean, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think that's a general
But I can
consensus.
also backtrack.
I was just picking your brain.
I can also backtrack and say, because I'm also go with the flow. Like, if you want to, do it. I don't want you to sit there and be like, oh, because Jared said on this podcast, I shouldn't. No, like, if you are in the moment with a guy and you're feeling a deep connection, like, it's hard to turn that down.
Yeah, but if you really like him, you probably should.
Correct.
You can do hard things.
Yeah, exactly. Life's hard, right? Like, we do hard things every day.
Yeah, if it's someone you really like, that's the right thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's just be yourself. That's the number one thing. Like, maybe have, you know, for me, it's going to be deep conversations from the beginning because my daughter's involved. So it's like, maybe show him that you can be uncomfortable around him. Like, talk about a bad experience or one of your flaws or something. Like, I don't know. There's like cookie cutter first dates. Like, where are you from? How many brothers do you have? What's your favorite color?
People still do that? That's so boring.
Yeah. I think it's just not falling into a bucket of just like, oh, I'm on a first date. I'm a little nervous. Like, we're just going to touch the basic questions and we're going to go from there. I think kind of what you talk about in business and like everything else, what's going to separate you from your competition? So it's like, be unique, be different, and like, be yourself. I'm not saying like don't go make up some random ass stuff trying to impress a guy, but it's like everybody has unique experiences.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, is if you are your genuine self and you have a strong sense of self, you are unique.
Yeah. For me,
for that reason.
For me, I want to be like, when I leave a date, I want to be like, wow, like, this girl's interesting. This girl's different. Like, when you go on a date with someone, clearly, as long as their pictures aren't photoshopped or you're getting catfished, you're going to be attracted to this person. There's going to be a physical attraction there. So, like, that's the easiest box to check. Now, how am I going to be different? You know, like, I want the other person to be engaged.
So don't be boring, basically.
Pretty much, but even more so than that, it's like, be different. Like, tell me something that not every other girl's gonna tell me. Like, it's like, okay, every guy tells me about their job, every guy tells me about their family and all that stuff. Like, what makes you interesting? I think that's a big thing. And other than that, it's just, after that, it kind of like, after that first date, if you have somebody's interest peaked, it's like, okay, I want to see this person again. Don't make dating rocket science. You know, like, you don't have to tell them what they want to hear. You don't have to try to come up with something. Like, I say be unique and be different, but that's within your own personal experiences. That's not like, I got to go make up some story so this guy will think I'm cool or this girl will think I'm cool.
Yeah.
Because lies are going to come out in the end anyway. Like you said, hiding your kid or hiding something about you, it's all going to get exposed. So let's not beat around the bush. Let's kind of get it all out there.
Yeah. What are some of those things that, like, are usually interesting about women that you're like, oh, that, like, I want to see her again? Like, is it just different to each person, or are there certain qualities about someone that makes them interesting and piques a guy's interest?
No, it's like, do you like to play an instrument? What's something as a kid? Like, tell me something embarrassing about yourself that you've done recently, or as a kid. Tell me about your hobbies. Tell me about just like, not the, there's basic like dating 2.0 stuff. Like, I want to know something about you that maybe you're not comfortable telling me. Something funny, something embarrassing. Like, let's laugh together. I think that's a huge thing. If you can laugh on a first date, that's great.
Yeah. Okay, so I think something that can be confusing for women, because what you're describing is basically being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like being open and honest and vulnerable and kind of showing your true self on the first date. But that's also not easy, because you're like, well, how vulnerable do I want to be? Because what's the risk here?
Yeah.
And so kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier of like, is this guy actually wanting a relationship? Is he actually ready for commitment? Is he actually interested in me? Or does he just want something else? So I guess my question kind of is like, if let's say the first day went great, and she was being vulnerable, and they talk about everything, kind of lay out all the cards. He's saying he's interested in a relationship. How does she know that that's true? Because you also get guys who do the opposite, who say, I'm not looking for a relationship. I had one on the show, my friend, and he said multiple times, probably 5 or 6 times on the podcast, like, well, I'm not dating right now. I'm not interested in a relationship. A month later, has a whole girlfriend in another state doing long distance. And I'm like, that's not what you said.
Yeah.
So how do we like decipher or discern that with guys?
Ultimately, you can't, but it comes down to communication and trust. And I think to the guy you had on the show who's in that situation, you hear a lot nowadays, when you're not looking, you're going to find it. So maybe he wasn't, like, I would take a guy's word, honestly. Like, if I'm a girl and I like a guy and he's telling me he doesn't want a relationship, I'd be like, okay, I'm not going to take you as seriously, though, because you're not. And then if it gets to that point, it does. But there are girls out there that'll be like, oh, I can change his mind.
Right.
Like, no, how about you just listen to him? He doesn't want to date. So just, yeah, if y'all hang out, whatever. If you want to hang out casually, go get drinks, whatever. But as a girl, just know, like, he told you he doesn't want to date. So don't try to change him.
Right.
Your friend wasn't looking, and then I don't know how that happened, but look at that. Like, it happened. So unfortunately, the world we live in, I know people have been screwed over and all that stuff, but I trust everyone until I give them a reason not to.
Ooh, that's risky.
It is hard. But, I come from a really good friend group and good family, and I know it's different being friends and family, but I'm around a lot of honest people.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is probably the hardest part of dating. Like, you have to make a decision, like, do I trust a stranger? At some point, you have to, because you're going to get into a relationship with this person. You're going to have to trust them. Trust is one of the biggest things in a relationship. Like, if you don't trust the other person, it's never going to work.
Yeah.
So 99% of the time, I talk to people that have successful relationships, they trusted the other person from the beginning. And, like, you go back to vulnerability and everything, like, you have to be vulnerable. You have to. And is that scary as hell? Yes, absolutely. Like, you go into any relationship, successful or not, you are pretty much strangers at the beginning. You may have mutual friends and whatever, but you don't know that person.
Yeah, for sure.
And you only know what he tells you.
I think that they say it takes like 5 years before you actually know someone.
Truly, probably.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have to be vulnerable and you have to trust. That's the only way I think it's going to work long term. And like I said, we've all been crushed, heartbroken, stabbed in the back. Like, unfortunately, part of life sucks. But, they say your trials and tribulations are what makes you at the end. So maybe, like, when you find your person, it's all going to be worth it. I think if you go into anything with, like, a bunch of fear or question, like, oh, I could get screwed over here. Do I trust this guy? Yeah, you're going to have that in the back of your head the whole time. Like, you're basically waiting for that person to screw up.
Yeah.
So you can say, I told you so. That I was ready for this. I was waiting for this. Like,
it's very cynical, though.
yes.
Yeah. Do you think that's what causes a lot of guys to like pull away kind of before a commitment? Because I think we see that a lot now. There's obviously a lot of contributing factors. Like, we have all these options out there. You have a lot of distractions, especially as men. But you, like, that's where the whole term of situationship comes from. Because like, you have this situation it is by definition a relationship, but you don't really get to that point of making it Facebook official or like exclusive or having that conversation, saying boyfriend and girlfriend. And a lot of guys will pull away kind of right before that is sort of the next expectation. What do you think is the main reason for that?
Could be options, could be cold feet, could be past experiences. There's a lot. I think anybody that's been hurt like severely as far as a breakup situation, I think it's hard to get let go, especially if you don't, like, if somebody hasn't gone to counseling, therapy. Like, that's not the answer to everything, but that sure helps in situations like that. We have some people that have gone through a traumatic relationship and then they jump right back into dating, and then temporarily they're okay and they find a person they like, and then halfway through that relationship they start having trauma from their severe breakup they had.
Person that hurt them.
Yeah. And then you don't know how to navigate that. But I don't know, I feel like a lot of people nowadays, and I have friends that, one of my good friends, or remain nameless, you start to look for something wrong with that person.
Yep.
If you've been, say you've been in a relationship in the past for a long time, and then it suddenly breaks off for like unexpected reasons outside of cheating, you start to kind of fall for someone, and then, oh, well, she can't be this, like, man, there's something wrong. Like, she can't be this good, like this, like, there's gotta be something wrong. So now all of a sudden, you're going into every date, every time you hang out, you have like a guard up.
Yeah. And you're like looking for
a flaw,
looking for something
reason
wrong, or like they have some sort of malicious intent. Or
and you know, you have the 29 other people on Hinge you swiped right or whatever, checked them, that are possibilities. So now you have all these factors, and the kind of like what we've been talking about the whole episode. There's so many factors that go into why people don't settle down or scared to settle down. Number one reason is options. And then you have, in my opinion, and then you have past trauma. You have another thing we haven't touched on is friends getting in your ear.
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't like that guy. I heard he's this and that, or he slept with her, and or he's that. All these accusations, stereotypes. Or say your best friend just doesn't like the guy you're talking to. Or someone in your family doesn't like the guy you're talking to. Like, there's dating. This is why I think the whole purpose of this is to show everyone that it's never easy. So if you're looking for an easy button, you might as well quit.
Yeah.
You might as well just give up.
Yeah.
It's an uphill battle. There's always going to be questions and concerns and he said, she said, and all that. So it's like trust comes into play. Like, trust yourself, trust your intuition. If you like someone, roll with it.
Yeah.
It's like
even if you're scared.
Yes, way easier said than done.
For sure.
But I think that's the only solution. Is just trust your gut, trust your instincts. If you really dig deep into this, nobody wants to be alone.
Yeah.
Are some people more comfortable being by themselves than others? Absolutely. But I think long term, I mean, it's proven everything's better with a partner. It helps in multiple ways. Finances, like connectivity, intimacy.
2 is better than 1.
Yes. It's pretty common knowledge. So for someone to say they want to be alone, I feel like it's a lie.
Oh, it's definitely a lie.
Or they've just gone through so much stuff, they haven't gotten to that point where they can get back into like reality.
Yeah.
It's just like, if you say you want to be alone, I don't know if I want to know about your past.
Yeah.
It's probably pretty scary.
Yeah. Okay, so my last question for you is one that I often ask on every podcast. What is your biggest regret in your dating past? I don't think you've really hit on that.
I would have liked to gone through like the high school sweetheart stage and stuff like that, starting younger, just getting more like on an intimate level at a younger age, to have that experience going in, because I was just really thrown into the real world at 17 years old with some money and tried to like navigate that. And there's a lot of things I hadn't done leading into that I wish I would have. I wish I would have had a long-term girlfriend. I wish I would have experimented. Like, wish I would have had some beer in high school, or had sex in high school, or hooked up or something, just to like get that out of the system and just be more cognitive and aware and like into my dating.
Okay.
Because I pretty much went in and I hadn't had fun or any experiences like that. So I was basically like living a college life, your experimental stage, as a young adult in the real world with money.
Yeah.
And then I kind of regretted that. So I jumped into a relationship. And I think if I would have had a little bit more experience dating prior to that, it kind of would have helped things out. I kind of went to...
Like maybe that would have helped you make better decisions.
Yeah. I kind of went to extremes because I didn't have that, you know, so I like went through extremes of like learning what like partying and the women's side of it was at 19 years old, and then having an extreme sense of regret and completely falling off and flipping it 180 to like straight into long-term relationships and not having any in between. So I kind of wish there would have been something leading up to that, and maybe would have made that less of an extreme.
I see.
And then kind of made that taper effect more like where I could have had a happy medium.
Yeah.
And then transitioned into ultimately what I wanted, which was long-term relationship, things like that. So kind of went in this very like jagged lines.
Like, well, like one extreme to the other.
Yes, straight to the top, jumped off. Didn't really even out. Didn't really have that like taper off effect that you get to have. Like experimented in high school, went to college, went pretty crazy, tapered off, came down, and then you just kind of find that balance. Mine was more just up, down, one extreme to the other. So more balance would have been nice, and more learning early on before getting into the real world would have been
interesting.
I think helpful. But it all worked out.
Yeah.
Maybe. per se, it all worked out.
Thank you all so much for tuning in to today's episode of That's What He Said. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I hope you're taking away something valuable that will benefit your dating life. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please give this show a follow, rate, and review. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, like this video, and most importantly, comment below because I want to hear what you said. See you next time. Thank you.